make the lap before we get caught up in the flea market stuff. Yeah. It's really interesting how he, how simple he does it.
Styrofoam?
Yeah, so what he's talking about, normally you'd make like a wooden form, a wooden copy of your part. You put it in sand and you use that. And you use that to make an airspace. As the sand dries, it hardens, you know, and then you can pour down into the void. He just fills it with, he carves this whatever he wants out of foam, sticks it in the sand, and then it just melts. When he pours the aluminum in, it just melts all the sand. Very simple how his, there's a pink one. Yeah. Howdy, howdy. I like the bigger ones like that. They're just plain neat to see. It's whistling at you. Running a little tiny motor here to actually act as a generator to make power to light it up. I like the colors on that one, yeah.
On the button.
Yeah. Actually, I think that one is. Yeah. Beautiful.
That's a picture of me standing right here on the real machine.
Very cool.
I was a little younger then.
Just a little bit.
A little thinner.
About 5 years ago?
That picture taken in '63, I was 15 years old, so can you figure out how old I am?
So how long did the actual model take?
I started in probably the late 1970s, and when I first started, in the wintertime, I started running the lathe. I teach myself how to machine, and so it's slow going. Then when the kids have grown up, it's set for 25 years. I didn't do anything.
Beautiful
About 10
work.
years ago, I brought it up to where I work. I'm a machinist now. Well, if I look at it every day, maybe I get it
finished. Yep.
So that seemed to work. About 5 years ago, then I started on this one here. It's not quite complete, but it's pretty close.
Now you got some newer looking pictures of the machine. Is the machine still around?
Yeah, that's how it looks today.
Oh, very cool.
It's no longer in our family, but I know the people that own it, and they sell new ones, work on old ones, so they're
Very cool.
trying to get it restored.
Well, that's always a fun task. A buddy of mine is just getting into. He bought a cable shovel last summer. It was sitting out in somebody's farm, and he's an antique tractor guy, but he said, well, this is just about 4 times the size of an antique tractor. He said nothing real complicated about it, and he said if he didn't buy it, no one else would, you know. So can't see things go to scrap. Beautiful work. Love it.
That's my second year here. I got chosen model of the year this year, so that's kind of cool.
Hey, I remember seeing that one last year. I don't remember seeing that one.
This one here, as you can see in the photo, I didn't have the engine all done. Got the head on it. Like I say, I had it running. There's a gearbox that goes right here, and that's what hooks it up to the rest of the machine.
Oh wow. Anybody can do an engine.
Yeah, that's been a challenge there. So well, that's part of the hobby, though.
Yes, sir.
Have you been here to the show before then?
Yeah, we've been coming 6 or 7 years now. So live locally, so always love it.
Yeah, I'm about 5 hours away from here.
Ah,
I
okay.
used to drive that far to come here.
Yep. Yeah, I'm actually a member. Crazy busy at work. I'm an engineer, auto industry locally, but I'm actually a member of the Early Engine Club that meets over at the Henry Ford Museum. So they're around here somewhere. Cool. Thank you for talking with us.
Thanks for stopping.
Very cool. Beautiful. I love all the little details like the radiator and
Yeah.
I mean, wow, talk about detailed. And this fellow with his big box of. So that's the other thing.
The casting.
Yeah. So
Casting
the green part is actual. The green parts are actually the wood forms that he used to cast all his parts.
Burn that out. My oven is only 18 inches deep.
You know my favorite part of that is that just the fact that he's got the aluminum on the engine there oiled down so it looks like it's been well run. Yeah, that's cool. Marble maze.
The magnets propel each other as they propel the motion.
Well, but I mean,
To make the wheels move, yes. It's a magnet pulling another magnet.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Very cool. Yep. Antique model boats. Yeah, that's cool. He's got the old newspaper clippings showing the builders racing them.
I was thinking about 5 years ago.
Very cool. Yeah. I really want to get one of the hit and miss kits to build one of the models of those. They did good money for the casting kits though, so.
How do you guys sit in the snow all day?
Nah, that's alright. As you get old, your sense of smell probably goes down. These are really cool. They're Sterling engines, so inside there's a little, you know the sterno can burners. That's the little orange flame you see inside, and the Sterling engine works on heat differential, so it's heating part of it up, and that's actually what's driving the fan. Yep. And there's the club. Everybody gets all excited over Joe's Gatling gun. What? Who? I don't know. Probably one of her granddaughters or somebody. Yeah. The club members are taking turns kind of rotating through the table, so yeah, that was cool. Kind of both sides there.
They're relaxing.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, it's a legit mini jet, mini turbine. Yeah, that's badass. I know, I like it.
He's removable.
OMG. You gotta get me a picture of this. Half size.
So cute.
Over 4.5 years.
Does it work?
Probably. Very probably. Wowza. I'm not gonna lie, I'd put that in the living room.
I know. Tucker would sit in the seat.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I know. Yeah, there is a bit of a haze in the room from all the fuel being burned.
Pointed that out when we walked in.
Always neat to check out the big trains. What's that? I think they're down. I think they're in that hall, but down at the other end if you want to go. I'm a wander. Very cool. Yeah. Oh, they're that side? Wow.
Well, you're looking at 3,500 I wouldn't give up either. And then, good thing you didn't. Yeah. You know, the last month before the show, I was up with no sleep for day after day. I said, I've got to get the bugs out of this thing. Well, you did. No, he's running it right. We're not going to run the kid out of it.
Small parts, that's right up your alley. I'm not a big fan of small parts, just a little bit bigger. They won't let off.
Hi. Yeah. They're little. Just your size engine. Yeah, the boat cutaway. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. It's really neat. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, you got an engine, you gotta run something, right?
We ate salmon. And the ostrich, one ostrich guy, his name was Mario Lenore.
Yeah, the lizard bite, that's cool.
Germanish name, ostrich, not German. We just our own version of German. But even the Germans get into the very, they're more like I call it hot.
Very cool. Some of these you can just sit and watch them run for days. Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
It can't be when you're in Chicago. No. I'll never forget. I took a bunch of training at the National Safety Council. And most of the time went summer. One year they sent me up there.
Diorama? Yeah. Well, why don't you get started on one then? Time for some sale. What don't I need? What don't I want? What can I use? I just want everything. Yeah. I know. Yeah. Oh, why don't you build one then? Yeah.
Look, it's Bridgeport. I like that bench grinder.
Yeah. That's how they ran them back in the day. All off the line shaft. Yep.
But you need like this part to run them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well you can build that though.
They're so cute.
Yep.
It's really not expensive.
I'm sure you can go online and look them up, yeah. I'm gonna turn this thing off.
There are different ways to build a crucible, and what I did was I put little lug things on the side and little T-spot type things so that when this is on, it really can't fall off. And the reason I did that was I've seen some really hokey looking ones, and you know, this you have nice, easy, you know, control. A little dirty, but you know, for pour. I like the idea of being safe. Other people, there's another scheme where you can actually just drill holes in the side of your crucible, and instead of having these type things, you just have a J-hook type bottom so that it snaps in. It does the same kind of thing as this does. This is the first time I've done this in years. I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. How long is this supposed to be anyway? Does anybody know?
I think like a half hour.
Half an hour, whatever. Okay. And if this does not interest you at all, feel free to walk out. You will not hurt my feelings, you know. Nothing worse than having, you know, after lunchtime, you know, we've all eaten. Now we're going to come into a room and sit. You know, it's like, yeah, so people snore, you know. I know I do sometimes. But anyhow, again, all this information is on the internet. And I wish I could show you a casting demo, but it's just not a good, safe place here anymore. We did it a couple years ago, and I didn't care for it at all. You know, because we were stuffed into the little loading dock area. Nobody could see what was going on. It just wasn't good. Possibly next year, maybe we can work out something like out in a parking lot where we could stanchion off, you know, like 20 or 30 feet square, where, you know, everybody can see it, and it would be a lot safer out there.
Sir, would you prefer questions afterwards when you've done some more questions?
How about we do the questions after? I'm not a professional anything, by the way, guys. This is just my fun stuff, you know. These are hobbies. I just like, you know, showing people and telling people. And again, one of the big things was, like a guy came up to me one time and he said, you know, I bought a book and I bought all these chemicals and I read all about it and I bought a furnace and it was so overwhelming I never did it. He goes, and then you show up with this 5-gallon bucket and a piece of water pipe and you make all sorts of things. I said, yes, that's the idea. Make things, you know. I've had other people email me and said, one guy I did a pour at a tech club years ago over in Ann Arbor, and the guy emailed me, he goes, I went home, he goes, I couldn't sleep. I started drawing things I'm gonna make, you know. And that's the whole idea, you know. If this is something you're interested in, this is how it works. I'm not even, basically, casting obviously has been around since forever, you know, but past the Egyptians. I mean, they've cast things forever. The traditional, you know, cope and drag where you pack a pattern in and, you know, pack it in and separate the two pieces and have vents and sprues. There's a million things on the internet for that, and that's fine. But what I prefer doing is I like the lost foam method. Basically, all these things up here were poured in one pour. You know, it was just basically like that. And when you're doing lost foam, the foam is going to be coated with some sort of a coating, either plaster of Paris or the stuff they spray on ceilings for that texture. Well, you got to sift out the texture. It's little styrofoam beads. But basically, that stuff is nice because it never goes bad. Obviously, once you put water to plaster of Paris, it's going to kick off and you're done. So you just put a coating on the foam part and let it dry. And then for the lost foam method, the sand has to be perfectly dry. Cannot have any moisture in it, because if you have any moisture, that's going to create steam. It's going to push in and it's going to ruin your thing. If it's done correctly, like these are nothing more than just, I sliced these pieces off of some insulation, you know, the 1-inch foam insulation. And I did this to show that it'll follow past, but if you leave a fingernail mark in here, it will see it. We broke one time and we used Scotch tape to put it back together. You could actually see the thickness difference in the little rigid edge. You know, you could see right where that tape was. So it's a good way to cast one item, I mean, because you only get one time. It's basically, if this was the sand, you just literally put your pattern in there like that, fill it with sand, shake it a bit to you know, let it pack around at its own pressure. You put a piece of exhaust pipe laying here for something to pour into, and it basically gives you a nice spot to go into. And you can see this was done with the white foam. White foam makes great screw material because it's generally, obviously, really cheap to get. Just any packing box. And the lighter it is, the better off it is. It'll burn through even faster. And quite honestly, I still don't believe this process even works. I mean, the thought of burning material out and filling it with aluminum without everything collapsing and making a mess. And it works every time, you know. Like I say, that's what these were, you know, these were just chunks and pieces I stuck on there. This was a open pour we did, little blower manifolds. Steve Huck over at one of the tables built a little blower thing, and so we made some patterns up, and I gave, this was like the worst one, so I just kept it to show, but this is just called open pour. We literally just packed this into the sand, the pattern, pulled it out and poured, knowing that you could machine the bottom off. I made this up with the intention of cutting these off and showing how that they would mate back to each other, you know, because it's just off the same piece. But it came out so neat looking, I just went, we'll just leave it the way it is. So just another thing. And if you have a cope and drag system, you have to have a draft angle. You have to have areas that don't lock, you know, where you wouldn't be able to pull the part out without it, you know, tearing up the sand. And this was poured down in Toledo at Names years ago, and it would be poured just like that. And I did this to show that if you had to make some gizmotron like this, I mean, you'd have to, you know, weld it together, bolt it together, whatever. Or if you wanted to machine it out of a solid block, it would be massive. But this is all one piece of aluminum. You know, it just flowed, burned out, and replaced it. There's one small little divot thing here, and that was actually in the foam. The hot glue melted the foam back a little bit when I glued them together. So just to give you an idea, I mean, this is things you can do. Years ago, I was going to produce a CNC kit for the Harbor Freight micro mill. It was that itty bitty mill they had, and so I made up a prototype, you know, motor mount for the thing, and then I machined one up out of, you know, after the prototype was what I wanted. I machined one up, and I went, man, this is getting to be a lot of work. So, you know, milling these. So I made a pattern like that, and then I just open poured them. You know, just put this into, now this was done in a regular green sand. This was done with, you know, a sand that, you know, is made for being packed, not dry sand. And basically I came out with these. So I had a whole lot less machine work to do on them. And as I was nearing completion on this, my projects take years. Yeah. As I was finally nearing completion, Harbor Freight stopped selling those mills. So now I have a lot of these ingots. I have probably about 3 or 4 5-gallon buckets full of these. So I just melt them down now. Honestly, that's all I can think to tell you.
Other tongs, is that used for skimming, or is that not them?
This is what I use for tipping usually, but I'll also take some of the dross off with it. You know, again, my habits aren't good habits. Oh, this one? This is just a set of tongs just to take a chunk of aluminum and to be able to put it in the crucible. You know, so you can lower it in without dropping it. You gotta remember, when this thing's going, it's pretty toasty warm, you know. I've always wanted to make like a barbecue grill, so when I was done casting, I could throw a grill on top, because it takes hours for this to cool down. I did a casting demo up in Lansing for another metal club, and my buddy Don Foran, who's back there, he was back there, Don Lee. Oh, there's Don in the corner. Me and him drove out to this thing. Guess what? I never anticipated the furnace being hot, and we were going to have to drive from Lansing back home that night. So they gave us some plywood, and we put it on the plywood, and we smelled burning plywood the entire way home. You learn from these things, you know.
Sir, what kind of safety equipment would you? Are you just pouring aluminum, or are you casting or anything? Or just so aluminum's still hot.
Yeah, it's 1400 degrees. When I cast aluminum, I wear a welding thing, and I've got those aluminized things that go over my shoes so that nothing can get into the laces, and that's pretty much all I wear. Safety goggles, you know, and I always wear a hat. You know, the only time I ever don't wear a hat is when I go to funerals, you know. So, but yeah, now for the brass, we've done brass before, and the first time I did brass was different crucible than this, but possibly maybe just a little bigger. And the brass is all melted, and we're going to do these cannons. And I grabbed a hold of it, and it didn't move. I'm like, oh my God, it fused to the bottom of the furnace. And then I went, how much does brass weigh compared to aluminum? And it was like everything I could do to lift that damn thing out. It was a slug. Think about the slug of brass, that big around and that tall. It was like, oh my. Yeah. So I have seen people actually take this, by the way, and put another burner in from the other side and melt iron. That's on the internet. Will I ever do it? Absolutely not. I have no inclination to do that.
Is that just because the temperature is involved?
Yeah. And again, I really, except for the motor mounts, I just find this to be fun to do. And years ago, I used to call people up and say, hey, we're going to do some pours this Saturday, and all my buddies would come over and we'd whittle things out of foam. This is the standard, white insulation type foam. This would be the pink foam I was talking about. That's, like Owens Corning. Owens Corning is pink. That was blue.
Have you ever tried that green foam that they put for flower arranging? It's like a real
I've never tried it, but it's an open cell foam. We have open cell foam at work, and it's like sandpaper feeling,
Yeah.
This was actually milled. These were like little tighter bases that I milled on my little CNC for another demo, and there's one cast to show people how it works. Did everybody get a flyer handout?
No.
I've got some up here, so make sure you grab one. It's got backyardmetalcasting.com. Everything I'm talking about is on that website. I've actually conversed with this guy. He's really a great guy, and he's goofy as all get out, just like the rest of us. He just wants to cast things, make things. And then Harbison Walker, they're the people that sell the lightweight refractor. And apparently we're lucky, because you can't get this kind of stuff all over the country. I mean, when you live out in the sticks, you got a mail order, and 50 pounds coming through the mail ain't cheap. Like I say, I use white foam a lot for sprue material, but this was done in a white foam. You can see by the little styrofoam BB look. This one, something happened. I don't recall what, but something happened to this one when we were doing it. This is just a little hot wire cutter. The neat thing with these is, I'm thinking the batteries are going dead. It usually goes faster. But anyway, this is kind of neat because it seals up the edge. Melts it and seals it at the same time. So you can cut shapes and do all sorts of things. They even make CNC hot wire cutters to do. One side could be a circle, the other side could be a square. Because it can articulate the wire.
What aluminum do you use? Where do you get it from?
Good question. Thanks for bringing that up. A lot of people ask me, can I use pop cans and things? You don't get enough aluminum out of a pop can to make anything. Trust me.
Unless you're a 10-year-old kid on YouTube. You ever seen one of these big holes in the ground?
Made the table?
No, not just big cooling things.
Oh. There's a YouTube video where the guy's on the beach and he melts aluminum in a fire, and then he had poked 3 holes in the sand and then made a circle area and made a table. Cast a table on the beach. Yeah.
If you go online, Budget Casting Supply out of California.
Yeah.
Where I've gotten a lot of my stuff. I've been casting for 45 years in my backyard in Alaska.
Isn't that cool?
So,
Just be able to make stuff,
I do sand casting, and mostly I've seen the lost foam done, but I find that you can coat down and do a lot of round objects in sand just as well as you can do with foam.
Right, but if you just, and there's so much information on the internet for all that.
But even if you don't want to do like that's like the David Gingery.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This idea actually came from back when they would do it with charcoal.
The charcoal.
My buddy Don's furnace.
That works well if you just start it out. If you wanted to do it.
Yeah, you only get one pour though.
I switch to cold, and that gets hotter.
Yeah.
And it works better. It does faster.
I'm lazy. I like that turning a valve and propane turns on.
Right, but I'm just saying, to get started.
Yeah.
And you don't want, it's a little safer than propane.
Where did you see
that I have to order from Lower 48. Like you said, it's expensive. I have to set up over the water, but I've made my own sand. You can use bentonite, a mixture of bentonite clay and
Silica?
Silica sand.
Yeah, that's what I use.
Like wash silica, 100 mesh or better is best. Wash silica with, but my original sand was fire clay and 70 mesh. It was a little rough.
Little coarse, yeah. Yeah.
What, the sand? Petrobond. That's a brand name, and it's an oil bonding sand. But and you can get it, like DCS sells it, and I know Small Foundry Supply is another place online. If you want to look online for that, and they can ship it. Small Foundry Supply sells a lot of. They cater to the high-end foundries as well. So
Like I say, there's a million ways to go on all this stuff.
When you mix with the,
Hang on for a second, this guy's hit his arm up.
what sort of aluminum do you use for things you're going to be machining?
I use 6061 just due to the fact that I've got like, probably 400 or 500 to 600 pounds of it. I bought it from a shop I worked at where, they were the cut-off edges of a job. So everything fits into a milk crate really tight and makes them very heavy. I've had people tell me, oh, you can't pour 6061 and this and that. And I said, well, that's what I've done here. That's what all these are. These are 6061 castings. This one's been machined across the top to show there's no porosity in it. Will it pass NASA inspection for metallurgy? Hell no, But you need a bracket, for your little motor you're building or a flywheel. Where'd the flywheel go?
You use anything to degas it?
I do.
Oh, there's the flywheel. This was done with the traditional cope and drag.
DCS are Small Foundry Supply. Sells aluminum. They also sell the fluxes as well.
Yeah.
How do you go about How do you go about ramming the sand around the corner?
You don't. It's all dry sand. This was styrofoam coated and just put into a bucket and shook and basically just shaking it and banging it on the ground a couple times, it will literally form all the way around. I don't think you'd actually want to compress it because then you run the risk of squishing it, And like I say, it works. This was all done, years ago, but just to show that it'll go in different directions, up, down, back, forth. This is a yard art type thing. I had a woman at one of the shows, I had an example of this, which was coated with the coating. For those who didn't hear about that, you want to do the styrofoam, you want to put a coating on it of either plaster of Paris or the stuff they spray on textured ceilings. But you spray it on, put it on and let it dry. Don't ever let any of this stuff be wet when you're casting it, because this is all dry casting. But I did some of these without the coating to show how coarse it would be. The sand had fused to it and all that. And this woman loved them. She wanted them for yard art. I'm like, here, take them. They're yours. But again, it just gives people ideas. This was done nothing more than with a box cutter knife and glued them on in a matter of 15, 20 minutes, and we made it.
Just to get a hole through the pattern that the aluminum will go into?
For the foam?
Yeah, no, and a core hole.
And a core, yes.
A casting.
You have to have.
What do you do to make a core hole?
That would depend on what I was going to cast and how big it was, but most of the time it's just a bunch of conduit things that I've sharpened and made little scoops and hooks out of, and then I've got some welding rod for making vent holes.
Seed oil and sand and make it the shape you want, and that works. That's good rigid core. Also, if you want to get more complex, you can use
Supplies for sand, bentonite.
What's that?
But you got to be
Suppliers for sand and bentonite. Pottery suppliers supply 90 sieve, sand, and bentonite clay.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the places around town I've talked with have bentonite clay that do anything with fire bricks.
Yeah.
And bentonite clay is really heavy. I mean, it's weight-wise, a little bag is like, I thought I was getting weak or something. It's not just, well, yeah, but Yeah.
What ratio do you mix it?
What's that?
What ratio do you mix?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you anymore. It's been
90-10, I think.
90-10.
Yeah.
And again,
Clay?
yeah, and silica sand, because silica sand is a sharp sand. You know, it basically locks together. The surface finish isn't phenomenal. And actually, I was thinking possibly next year I'm going to do a silver casting demonstration, because I can do that with an electric crucible. You know, it looks like a coffee pot, and maybe I'll do some lost wax, and you know, where we burn the wax out in advance. I'm going to try to make it more like all my patterns are jewelry, so I'll have to make up some for some little flywheels or something, you know. But anyhow, any other questions? Oh.
What kind of glue do you use for that?
He asked what kind of glue, and I just use hot glue. You buy the dollar store little cheapy gun that uses the little 1/4-inch glue, and it's a low temperature. Initially, I used high temperature, and it melted my foam away as I was trying to glue it. So yeah, any kind of thing that'll hold it together. You can tape it together. Like I say, we broke one time and put tape on it, and it held, and you can see where the tape was right in the aluminum. You know, you can see all the little beads from the white styrofoam on this part. And afterwards, feel free to come up and pick it up.
The popcorn stuff. What is that? Is that like a tape? Like
It comes in a bag. It's powder.
Oh, it's a powder.
Yeah, it's a powder.
And if I went down to Home Depot and said I need some popcorn stuff, then
Yeah, sealing texture. You know, they shoot it out of that gun. It's got a big hopper on top, and it's
Yeah.
sprayed. Well, that's the product you want. Or if you're just going to do a couple things, some plaster of Paris will work too.
And then you
But-
just smooth it out with sandpaper or what?
What's that?
Well, after you put on your foam. you
Oh,
put
no,
it
no, no.
faster.
You just put it on. You just want a
You
coating.
just brush it?
All it is a separation between the sand and the metal. That's all it's going to do, is just give you a little bit of a separation. If not, the aluminum will go right into the sand. Yeah.
I've got a couple of casting examples. Can I bring these up?
Sure, absolutely.
This was done in a home foundry. So much iron. That's the.
You cast this?
Yeah,
Did you make the pattern?
I did.
I like it.
You get the 3D print of the Speedy?
Some of that was handmade. That was handmade. Some of that engine was 3D printed.
And then you just use them as patterns?
Yep.
The 3D printing? Cool. Yeah.
Several years ago, 5 years ago, the first time I saw you cast, and you had some safety suggestions to everybody. And I don't know, I came in a little bit late, maybe you told them about your tools. When you go to lay them down, you've got a tank of propane for your grill that you're using for the furnace. And you can lay your poker across that, and it'll burn a hole through the hose. And if you had your car right next to this, it's gonna take all the paint off your car.
Yeah, real fast.
And this is for you, and I got all this. And then he said, if you have to buy your vinyl house, he said you're gonna melt all the plastic off your house. And then he said, with the tools, if you lay them down, 9 times out of 10, you will pick up the hot end of that poker.
I still do that with when I'm TIG welding at work. I'll grab the TIG rod and burn myself, yeah.
And then you said that you will have your hand wrapped up for 6 months and all kind of skin grabs to get it to work right. And he said it was very, very important what you did with your tools, and I believe you said put them in a bucket of water
Yes.
when you're done with it.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I didn't cover that, but I always have 1 or 2 5-gallon buckets of water next to me when I pour, because if I need it, I don't want to have to go look for it. You know, if I were to burn myself, all the tools stay in the bucket wet. And when I go to put something in, it can be dripping wet. It ain't going to matter. That's going to turn to steam instantly. It's only captive steam, which means like if you had a piece of scrap metal and it had a tapped hole and it's got mud and dirt and stuff on it, that could have moisture in it, could have grease in it, and that will cause an explosion. You know, not major, but it could easily, you know, pop, shoot material up, you know. So I always put all my tools in, and that's a big one in glass bead making too. When I teach glass bead making, we have these little mandrels with a wood handle, and if you don't, you know what you're doing, you know, if you forget and go to put a new bead thing on a liner, you'll burn yourself. So we always keep saying out loud, mandrels in the water, mandrels in the water, you know, when I'm doing a class. Yes?
You don't want to do this on concrete, you drive where you need.
No, you really don't want to do it on concrete, but I've done it many times.
Yeah. I mean, you get a spill, you could get a...
I get those, I think they're about 1.5 inch thick fire bricks.
Okay.
And I put 2 of them under the furnace.
Yeah, I wouldn't think you'd set the furnace directly on.
Actually, I used to do this on a wood deck in my backyard. Never burned it once. I'm glad you brought the safety thing up. Another thing, totally forgot. You know, it's been a while since I've done this talk. When you're done with the burner, when you're done with the furnace, you know, you've melted your aluminum, you're going to pour it, you shut off the gas, pull the burner back out. It's going to actually be cold to the touch because it's had so much air flowing in here that it's not hot. If you leave it in there, it will get hot, it will backtrack, and it will melt your propane line. In other words, yes, that happened to me once. So always make sure you pull the burner assembly out.
Do you set your crucible flat on the bottom of the furnace?
Yes, I do.
You don't raise it off?
No, a lot of times they have that flint block to rest a crucible on. I've never done it. I just set this right in there and never worry about it.
And then it's made out of just a piece of iron pipe?
Yep, just a piece of steel tubing I picked up out of the shop, welded some ear things on it that have a little bit of a flange on the thing, and so that my tool will hook on and stay there. Actually, it's a very heavy crucible because that's a solid chunk of metal at the bottom. I was too lazy to turn it down anymore. Yeah?
About how much work time do you have, the time you heat the aluminum to you have to get it into the hole?
I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't have a pyrometer to measure the temperature either. I take it till it's just melted, then I crank the heat up a little bit more, put a little more heat into it, and then shut the, you know, after about a minute, shut the burner off, pull it out, and by that time I'm ready to pour. Everything's all lined up. I would guess 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
So do you screw the dross off at that point, or just kind of push it off to the side?
A lot of times I have very little, and I don't even worry about it.
Okay. I mean, if your aluminum is dirty, you're going to have contaminants.
I tried one time to do aluminum tags off of machinery. My brother gave me a big bucket of these, and basically I probably got about a cup of aluminum and like 4 cups of dross. You know,
okay.
All that anodizing and paint, all that stuff is terrible.
Are you using an electric blower along with your gas?
Nope, this is just gas only. If it were a forced air system, it would heat up a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
But I like simplicity. You know, you steal your tank off of the barbecue grill, you hook onto this. When you're done, this will have the hose on it going to the regulator and the fitting going to the tank. Once this is cold, you can wrap that up, put this inside there with it. All your stuff stays right here.
You don't want to steal the wife's hairdryer?
No.
Okay.
No. I didn't bring the muffin pans either. The first time I did it, we had a lot of, I wanted to make ingots out of it. I didn't have anything, so my wife was out shopping, so I went and took the muffin pans from the stove and made, muffins in it, aluminum muffins. And she came home and I said, you're gonna need muffin pans. She goes, oh no, I've got some. I said, not anymore. They don't look the same. Not at all. Yeah.
How many times do you heat up a crucible full of aluminum on a 25-pound propane tank?
I've never actually figured it out. We figured out mathematically one time what we were using, but if you're going to continue to pour, the first pour is going to be 15 to 20 minutes to get it up to temperature, but after that, you're at 5 minutes. I mean, you know, all the heat's in the crucible and the lid already, and so I would have to say probably, I would, maybe a dozen, 10 or 12.
In one heat.
Yeah, at one time, yeah. So again, I literally use my barbecue grill. I just go on, take it off the barbecue, go hook it up, do my stuff, get done, put it back on the barbecue. You know, that way I don't even have to have a separate tank or anything. There are many variations of burners on the internet. You know, there's a real burner, R-E-I-L. It's real simple to make. All these burners are really simple to make out of pipe fittings. So,
Is there anything inherently dangerous pouring magnesium?
I don't know how to pour magnesium, and I don't want to know.
I heard that it can cause
magnesium, I don't know how they actually pour it, because obviously magnesium burns.
Oh yeah.
So unless it's done in a vacuum of some sort, or inert gas, you know.
You can use silver nitrate. You can use silver nitrate and it'll stain. I can't remember which one it'll stain.
Silver nitrate, yeah.
Silver nitrate.
No, I have blocks of magnesium. Every now and then we'll fly cut something and light it off, you know, and hit it with some oxygen. Makes it real bright.
We put one of those big cardboard tubes that is about 5 foot, filled it full of magnesium, got kicked a rock to it. We put a waterproof fuse in it, lit it up, and then we threw it in this pond. It was at night.
Yeah.
The cops were there in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Nothing's supposed to go on and down in there.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of things that we used to do, I wouldn't do anymore. Oh God, yeah. We used to. Every now and then we'd fly cut some magnesium, get those nice big shavings, pack them tight like to the size of a baseball, and then light it off, and then you hit it with pure oxygen off the welding thing. And it just, I mean, yeah, it's real bright. Anyway, those are bad things I do. Don't listen to bad things. Any other furnace question things?
Just a,
yeah.
On your propane line, is there something in the line that keeps flame from going back up the line?
Propane will not back flame. You don't need flame arresters on it. Propane needs oxygen to burn, and it won't backfeed like acetylene would. Acetylene, you'd be dead in a heartbeat if you tried to do this. So, yeah. Yep.
just a comment on when to pour.
Yeah.
I watched the meniscus on the side of the metal.
Yeah.
And it'll actually go flat. When it goes flat, it's time to pour.
Time to pour.
Yeah.
Someday I've got a high temperature probe, and someday I'm gonna hook it up to a meter so I can actually see the temperatures, you know.
But you're, minute of the soup and eat. That's.
Yeah. We cooked some brass one time. We took the Sancrite out of it. We weren't paying attention. It looked like the weirdest plasma glow you ever saw. I'm like, I don't know what it's going to do. Everybody stepped back. We shut it off, and it was still good. It was ready to pour like 15, 20 minutes later. That's when it cooled off enough. Yeah, it got hot.
Yeah, that was correct.
So anyway, this is just a good basic system. Like I say, if you didn't get one of the handouts, I got them up here. And it's about, simple as it comes. Feel free to come up and look at it, play with it, do whatever. Why bring things?
Very cool. Yeah. Thanks for the handout.